All right, everybody, so welcome back to another episode of Colton Posey Fishing. So today we're going to be talking about swim baits. So, there's specific swim baits that I run for specific reasons, but one of the biggest things that I found out about running swim baits is the time of the year and when I need to kind of swap up, the weight size. Particularly, spring and then, winter, I'm typically running those smaller swim baits, bigger swim baits, but with smaller heads. And then, as the year progresses into summer and fall and stuff like that, I'm going with smaller swim baits and bigger swim bait heads. So that way I can move that bait faster. But we're going to get into all that. Make sure if you're new here also to subscribe. Also like the video. It helps me out a whole lot. But either way, stay tuned. This is something you don't want to miss. All right, everybody, so let's jump into it. So talking about swim baits, there's a couple of different things that you need to understand, and I've said it multiple times, but if you're new here and you haven't heard me talk about this, during those cooler months, the metabolism and stuff of the bass slow down. So when that happens, they typically want something slower. It just mimics the motion of the bait fish that they're feeding on, or crawfish, whatever you may be fishing with. You're typically going to slow down in those cooler months, typically when the water temperature is 60 or below. Now, when that water temp starts to climb, you'll notice that the fish kind of want your presentation faster and faster and faster and faster. Now, to do that, you're going to go up in weight and down in size, okay? Because, when the shad spawn and stuff like that happens, you're going to have a bunch of fry running around and stuff like that. So you got to downsize and mimic what they're eating to the best of your ability. So let's jump into the swim bait heads. All right, so starting off with the cooler months, so when that water temperature is 60 or below, typically I kind of run it past 60 degrees, but just giving you a broad estimate, just keep using it until it the bite really slows down on that bite, and then you'll want to upsize the head, and then downsize the bait. Either way, this is a 1/4 ounce swim bait squadron head. This is made by Strike King. This is one of my favorite swim bait heads to use. I typically run it on a rage swimmer. So during those cooler months, I'm running like a 3.75 inch rage swimmer, almost that 4-inch profile. And I'm throwing this bait out there, and as soon as it hits the water, I'm just kind of slow reeling it and letting that bait kind of taper down and then back up. But it's got that real wide tail. One of the main reasons that I use the Strike King rage swimmer, the ribs are pointed forward, so it creates a lot more resistance in the water, okay? And that just helps you slow that bait down even more. But during the fall and spring, this is a perfect technique to use. It's super simple. I mean, throw it out there and reel it. That's pretty much all you got to do, and you'll catch big ones. I mean, big ones. Now, let's say maybe you're on a lake, where the shad's real big. Maybe you're dealing with big gizzard shads and stuff like that. You're still going to want to go with that 3.75 inch rage swimmer, but maybe the water temperature's climbed up, so you need to move that bait quicker. That's typically when I'll go with a 3/8 ounce swim bait squadron head. And that just allows me to cast it out there, and I can reel that bait a lot quicker and keep it in, whatever depth I need to. You can go all the way up to a 1/2 ounce. Sometimes you have to, but I've typically found staying in between that 1/4, 3/8, rarely 1/2 ounce swim bait heads typically help. And you can also get super long casts. So if you're fishing long points and stuff like that, your 3/8 ounce and your 1/2 ounce is really going to shine, especially on those far casts that you need to make. Now, talking about my other favorite swim bait to use, and I'll run this even in the spring, especially if I'm dealing specifically with a threadfin fishery where there's a lot of threadfin shad, because threadfin typically don't get that big. But you can take the 1/4 ounce swim bait baby squadron head, and then you can take something like a Rapala Crush City Mayor, or if it's winter time, I'm still going to be using the rage swimmer, but I'm going to downsize to the 2.75 inch, but just team it up with this head, and it's just a great profile. It's small, it's simple. Reel it out there again, slow crawl it back to the boat, whatever you need to do. You can kind of keep it in whatever depth range you need to. You can fish it on bottom. That's one of the biggest techniques that I use, especially fishing on spotted bass fisheries. I'll let that 1/4 ounce sink to the bottom, and a lot of times they'll hit it as it's sinking to the bottom, but maybe once it gets on bottom, I will kind of slow reel it and just have it ticking across rocks or clay, whatever kind of bank that I'm fishing, or whatever point or channel bend, whatever I'm fishing, and just let that thing tick, and man, they will hammer it, load up on it big time. Now, another great one that I like to fish, especially when that water temp climbs up above 65, into that 70-degree range and higher. This is the Rapala Crush City, and what I do is I take the all-terrain Smalley Smasher. This This is a 3/8 ounce swim bait head. It's got a little eyelet here. I can cast this thing a mile. I mean, whether you're fishing it on a casting rod or spinning rod, it doesn't really matter. You can cast it a mile. It's a great technique, and you can reel this bait fairly quickly. I mean, you can move it pretty fast. Now, I have noticed with the Crush City, if you reel it too fast, it likes to roll over on the side. So, you know, if they want it quicker, but you can't do it with the Crush City, you can always swap back to the 2.75 inch Rage Swimmer and burn it, okay? And it's still gonna have that wide tail wobble and stuff like that. And it's not gonna, you know, try to spin on you and stuff like that. But these are typically the swim baits that I run 90% of the time. It's super simple, and I'm gonna show you my setup. Now, my #1 profile that I run 90% of my swim baits on, besides my 3.75 inch Rage Swimmer, is a spinning setup. So what I'm doing is I've got 10-pound braided line to a fluorocarbon, or 8-pound fluorocarbon leader, and you know, I'm running the Lose Speed Spool reel. Let's see here, this is a 7-foot medium action rod. It's really medium moderate. That way I've got a lot of bend. Since I'm running the fluorocarbon, you know, it's not going to have as much stretch, so I really don't like running monofilament on my spinning setup, just because of the line twists and stuff like that it gets in it. So you know, having that medium moderate action rod helps me load up and gives me that bend in case, you know, they kind of short strike it, they're not really getting the bite or getting the bait really good. It gives them a little bit of give where they can get that bait. But typically with the Crush City, I don't have that problem. But with the Rage Swimmer, from time to time you will. But that is my setup 90% of the time for the 2.75 inch. I don't ever run a 3.75 inch on it, just because it's a lot of bait to handle on a spinning setup. But all right, so now this is kind of going to be this is going to be my 3.75 inch setup, but this is kind of going to be controversial because some people like a medium action casting rod for throwing swim baits. And don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with that. If that's what you're comfortable with, go with that. But typically I like to run medium heavy. I like a little bit more backbone with my swim baits, especially fishing around brush piles and stuff like that. But you do have to have some kind of give. So one of the things I've really been experimenting with is running monofilament on my swim bait setup. So I'm running 20-pound monofilament, and that's typically with my 1/4 ounce 3.75 inch Rage Swimmer, or the 3/8 ounce 3.75 inch Rage Swimmer. And you know, it's just got a lot of give. Now, this rod right here, this was sent to me by Thunderhawk to try out. This is called the Tyco series. I've been using this rod, and I really enjoy the sensitivity and stuff. I haven't got to put it through the ringer yet, but so far what I saw out of it and just using it, the castability is super lightweight. But this is the Tyco series. It's 7'3" medium heavy action rod. It's about a $279 rod. It is an expensive rod. But here's the thing, you know, if you're in the market for a higher end rod, I can recommend this rod, you know, for swim baits. Well, say, like I said again, I haven't got to put it through the ringer. I've been boat flipping bass and stuff today with it, no issues. It just feels really good. It's very, very comfortable. But either way, I'll let y'all know more about it once, you know, I get more familiar with the rod. But this is what I've been using, and I've been throwing a fluke on it today some too, on top of the swim bait. So, you know, keep your setup simple. 7'3" medium heavy and 7.5 to 1 gear ratio. I do like that higher speed gear ratio reel, simply because if they hit it from behind and they're running straight towards the boat, I can catch up to them super easy. But either way, guys, I hope the video helped you. If it did, make sure to like, subscribe for more content. I got you covered when it comes to anything bass fishing. Not only that, we got members only now, $2 a month. Become a member, you can get the videos you know, up to a week early, and then you can ask your questions early. Also, if you have any questions, comment down below. I'll be glad to help you any way that I can. That's what we do over here. I appreciate it, guys, and I'll see you next time.